Alright everyone, welcome back to the channel for another update on Crypto.com. In today's episode, I want to give you a quick update on the bearish momentum that is currently finding its way into the markets. This is not just happening for Crypto.com, we've been talking about this over on my Twitter. There is hidden bearish divergence playing out on Bitcoin, and we're going to be talking about the hidden bearish divergence on Bitcoin and also Crypto.com. This is a very powerful signal, and in my opinion, we're about to see that next move to the downside. So let's jump right into today's video. So right off the back on the daily time frame, you can see if we look at our momentum indicator of choice, which is the squeeze momentum, the daily has started to tick over into dark green. This should be indicative that we're getting ready for that next move to the downside. So even in the short term, in the most bullish scenario, let's say I'm wrong and Crypto.com is not getting ready for a major breakdown, even in a bullish scenario, we could come down to about 11.2 cent, which would be another 7.5% move to the downside before we have a bounce. I do not think this is going to be in play. I think there's a lot of signals right now that are pointing for that next move to the downside. I talked about this in my last video about 2 days ago over on Crypto.com. We've got this massive head and shoulders playing out, and since we made that update, we're just making lower high after lower high, and it looks like now when you head down to the lower time frames, that momentum shift is happening at this moment in time, and we're getting bearish momentum step into the market. Over on the 4-hourly time frame for the squeeze momentum indicator, we're ticking over into light red, indicative that, as you saw over here, the last time we switched over to light red, we moved from 12.3 cents all the way down to about 10.9 cents. So a fairly decent move to the downside. I think this is once again going to happen again, but bear in mind we're shifting the momentum at a lower high. We're shifting into bearish momentum at 12.1 cent. The last time we shifted bearish momentum, we were here at 12.5 cents. So, you know, not a large amount of difference between the shifts, but nonetheless, with everything going on in the greater markets right now, which we'll be touching on towards the latter half of this video, it makes sense that we would be breaking to the downside. And once again, like we talked about in our last video, this head and shoulders is what I think is going to be playing out next for Crypto.com. You know, the last time we had almost like an inverse fractal of this. We broke down from a massive bear flag, or rather we broke down from a massive cascade to the downside. We formed a bear flag and we broke to the downside of it, but we actually formed this inverse head and shoulders, which, as you know, this is a sign of bullish reversal. But what did we do? We came up to the neckline on the right shoulder. We didn't manage to retest it successfully, and then we broke to the downside. Since then, we have been forming a massive bear flag. There's a few different ways you can draw it. Let's just draw it something like this, where you are heading to the downside right now. Now, there's definitely multiple ways you can draw this. If I draw it like this, it almost looks like, if we discount the pole, this would be a megaphone. And, you know, nonetheless, no matter what way, no matter what momentum comes in, I think we're getting ready for that breakdown. If we look at the volume is completely stagnating right now over on FTX. There's not a lot of buying, not a lot of selling going on. So we're really waiting for that next momentum shift to come in. And as we're having bearish momentum step in right now, I think it's very clear in what direction the momentum is going to be wishing to pull down to. So once again, 4-hourly time frame, we are pushing down, setting into a light red phase over on the squeeze mom, which is going to be indicative that we should be seeing a move to the downside very soon. The money flow indicator is showing extreme weakness right now. We've basically been lollygagging since we were forming the right shoulder. On the daily time frame though, you know, it does look like the MFI does have a decent amount of room that it can push to the downside. It is very, very weak at this moment in time. On the 4-hourly time frame, the MACD did go overextended. Over on the tops though, you can see you have formed a lower high after this most recent bullish flip. Look at this momentum that is coming in over on the MACD on the 4-hourly time frame. There's a lot of bearish momentum and it looks like we're heading right down. Also take into consideration at this moment in time, the MACD is above the heart line, so there's a lot of room, a lot of potential bearish momentum to step in, and considering the volume is not stepping in at this moment in time, we can imagine that a lot more volume can come in very, very soon. As of the time of recording this, we're about 3% down on the daily. And if we do look at all of the cryptos on the right side of my screen, you can see that everything, almost everything, because, you know, bear in mind there are some cryptos that are up, almost everything, 99% of cryptos are in the red today. And as I said, it looks like we're getting ready for our next flush down to the downside. The breakdown target of this head and shoulders will be taking us down to 8.6 cent. In my opinion, this is the next move we should be focusing on. This is a further 29% move to the downside. Now, I do have a macro prediction, which is completely unchanged, but I will give you an update on this. There was a massive price target from this bear flag breakdown, and this also lines up with this orange line here, which is your 3.618 Fibonacci from this most recent low up to a high. We've got a 4.618 down here at 2 cent. I don't think this is going to be in play. And we've also got a lot of support ranges down here where we've got the price target from the bear flag breakdown. And we're basically in price discovery to the downside right now. So this is the box where I think we're going to be coming down to. There's a lot of confluence down at these regions between about 4.3 cent and 5.3 cent. Once again, this is where I think we're coming down to. I've been saying that we're going to be coming down here since we broke down from this bearish flag. And once again, we made this prediction at basically 18 cent. And we were saying that we're going to have a 71% drop to the downside. And since that most recent prediction, even after this dead cat bounce forming the right shoulder, we're 32.6% down since our most recent prediction. This is very nice. I've actually been bearish on crypto.com for a while. If you go back to my channel, they started basically destroying the rewards for the crypto.com cards up here at 35 cent on the 1st of May. It's well documented over on my channel. I did make a news update on this. If you go over to my news playlist, I made a video here talking about the crypto.com Visa card reduction rates. This was on the 1st of May, and if you go back to the 1st of May at 35 cent, I told you I have sold all of my crypto.com. That's definitely aged well considering we're down here at 12 cent now, and we're getting ready for that next momentum shift to the downside. So that's what's going on in the short to mid-term times for the charts. And once again, my bear market low prediction is down here at 5.3 cent for crypto.com. I'm not a hater of crypto.com. If you're new to the channel, I'm not a perma bear. I don't think this is going to zero, but I have been looking at the charts objectively since 35 cent. We flipped bearish, and I am still keeping that same what's the word? I'm still keeping that same bearish bias. I still think we're breaking down to 5.3 cent. Let's wrap up this video talking about the momentum that is coming in with the bearish divergence. Now, I talked about this over on my Twitter. You know, if you do want to follow me over on Twitter, it is here at 618_cowboy. I do share a lot of these charts before they do reach my YouTube. And I also do share charts like this that don't necessarily constitute enough time to put in an entire YouTube video. So if you do want to follow me over on here, be sure to check it out. But nonetheless, the daily hidden bearish divergence that is playing out on Bitcoin, we've been talking about this for a while, and I'll talk about how this affects crypto.com in a second because it's also playing out on crypto.com. On the daily time frame, we've been seeing this hidden bearish divergence since about the 13th of June. Hidden bearish divergence, if you don't know, is where the price action bearishly diverges from our oscillator. This is where the price has highs, lower highs, lower highs, lower highs, and lower highs, but the oscillator has highs, higher highs, higher highs, higher highs, higher highs, and higher highs. What does this mean in layman terms, and why does this make sense? Well, it makes sense because the price action is moving to the downside. So price action is bearish. Every time you have a high, it's a lower high, and you're slowly but surely moving to the downside. But the oscillator is going from a place of extreme weakness, and every time you have a dead cat bounce, even though it's a lower high, the oscillator becomes more and more overextended. So you can imagine if this plays out on Bitcoin for the next couple of weeks or so, that the more and more we have these dead cat bounces to lower highs, like if we do something like this, the oscillator is going to get more and more overextended, and this is exactly what we're witnessing over on crypto.com to start with. Now, I first of all noticed this divergence when I was looking at the daily, and I noticed that we've got a small amount of divergence right here from this high to this high where the oscillator's moving up but the price action's moving down. And then I looked and I was like, okay, you can actually draw this to here. And then I realized you can draw it all the way back down to here, and this has basically been playing out since the 9th of May. So if we extrapolate back since this divergence really started to come into play, We've been moving to the downside for 63 days. Over 2 months worth of bearish divergence has been playing out on crypto.com. Once again, this has been playing out since 24 cent, and with every dead cat bounce, you're noticing lower high after lower high. And as we've been talking about, with the momentum that is coming in on the lower time frames, with the momentum that's coming in on the higher time frames, with the lack of bulls stepping in to buy up this market structure, and even when we look at the daily EMA ribbons, you can see we've run into the daily EMA ribbons on the head, made a lower high, run into the daily EMA ribbons when we form this right shoulder and made a lower high. This double bearish retest of the EMA ribbons, in my opinion, is absolutely brutal. And because of all the reasons that we talked about today, my friends, I think crypto.com is going to massively flush out to the downside once again in the very short term. In the next day or two, we're at least going to have a retest of 11.2 cent. If we capitulate beneath there, the head and shoulders breakdown is going to be down here at 8.6 cent. And we've also got, breakdown targets between the 3.618 and the bear flag breakdown between 5.2 and basically 5 cents. So there's a lot of price targets there to focus on. I just want to mention the two most important ones so you don't get confused with all of them. In my opinion, in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be breaking down to 8.5 cent. This represents a 29% drop from where we are right now. And in the next couple of months, the next 2 to 3 months, this is when I think Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency ecosystem, all of the altcoins, are going to find their bear market low. Where do I think at this moment in time crypto.com is coming down for its bear market low? Between 5.2 and 4.9 cent. This is where I think the bear market low will take place. Am I saying that it's 100% going to take place down here and I'm going to put buy orders down here now? Absolutely not. I want to be malleable and I want to be able to incorporate new data when it does come in. So for example, I'm saying at this moment in time, I'm very confident to say we're going to move down to 5 cent. However, we've got things like CPI reports, we've got GDP growth, we've got FOMC meetings all within the next 3 weeks. If inflation is continuing to run through the roof, if the interest rates continue to get raised, and most importantly, in 3 weeks' time, when we do have our GDP growth report, if we do have negative GDP growth, we're going to be in a confirmed recession. So once again, when I say at this moment in time, I think we're coming down to 5 cent and that's going to be the bear market low, I am not saying that this is 100% going to be in play. I am not setting buy orders down here. I'm going to be malleable when new data comes in. I'm going to allow that new information to change my opinion, because I don't want to just sit here and say 5 cent is 100%. Well, I do think it's going to be in play. So 100%, in my opinion at least, I think 5 cent is going to be where we're going to come down to. But if we do have tons of negative news come into the markets, I will potentially be looking at lower price targets. So when I say 5 cent is my bear market low target, bear in mind, if you keep up to date with my channel, you may see that I have lower price targets, like these targets down here at 4.3 cent, depending on the GDP, FOMC, and CPI news. So that's all I've got for you today for crypto.com. Hope you found some value in today's video. If you're going to take away anything from this, it should be the massive hidden bearish divergence that is not only playing out on crypto.com, but it's also playing out on all of the altcoins, and it's playing out on Bitcoin. Be super careful if you are trading these markets. In my opinion, we've got a lot lower to go before we find our bottom. That is all I've got for you today for crypto.com. Hope you found some value in today's video, my friends, and as always, cowboy out. Peace.